Would like to welcome everyone to the inaugural episode of our up-and-coming podcast. My name is Raphael.
My name is Macarius.
So today we're going to be discussing something that tends to be a little controversial. That question being, can you be a Christian and support abortion?
And the answer to that really is no. That's a pretty black and white issue.
Yeah, so if we look at what the early church fathers taught, what we see is people like St. Basil the Great, who writes in the first canonical epistle that let her that procures abortion undergo 10 years of penance, whether the embryo is perfectly formed or not. Mm-hmm. And then we see again in his first letter 8, he writes that both the person who performs the abortion and the person who receives it are both guilty of homicide. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Then you also have St. John Chrysostom, who says that to destroy the fetus is something worse than murder. Mm-hmm. Right? That the one who does this does not take away life that has already been born, but prevents life from being born. And to me, the most damning one would come from the Didache, which is the earliest Christian source that we have, that simply says, you shall not slay the child by abortion.
Well, that's interesting. There are a couple of things that you brought up that I feel are very interesting. The first was that, even the mother is guilty of homicide, which makes sense legally because there is negligent homicide, where by doing nothing you allow someone to get killed. That's called negligent homicide. So under the law, under even secular law in America, that is officially homicide. There's no doubt about it. And, the idea that, what St. John Chrysostom said about, it being worse than murder really makes sense because you're not even letting this child see the light of day. It's never been outside to experience God's wonders or majesty like the rest of us have. We've seen mountains. We've seen vast expanses of land. The child inside the mother sees nothing. It gets some sunlight. That's about all it gets. But even then.
So, is this actually a controversial subject amongst Christians, amongst Orthodox Christians?
The full truth of it is that there's nothing controversial about preserving life. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, the government is supposed to prevent those things. One of the things is life. And the whole thing about abortion is that it's preserving life, and it's not controversial. It's made controversial because people have actually sold out their faiths and their religious ideologies for political ideologies, which are inherently secular, because politics and religion are not the same thing.
So what about the poll research that was done that showed that over, I believe, half of Orthodox Christians support abortion?
Mm-hmm. Well, so from Pew Research, they said that 48% male Orthodox believe that abortion is cool, 52%, 4% more of women believe that abortion is totally cool. Now, the sample size was only 102, and usually when people think Orthodox, they tend to think Greek first. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I guess there are certain hubs of Greek Orthodox around. I know that's a thing. But even the fact that, their sample size of 102 even believes that's kind of like, the tremble of a spider's web. A spider can tell if something's going on further down the web if something, lands on it. Kind of the same thing here. If there is even a small portion of Orthodox who were taken into sample size who believe in abortion, then the question suddenly becomes, if that many people do, who else is going to believe in abortion who's Orthodox?
I guess what really bothers me is that these aren't young people when you actually look at the age. These are people that should know better. Mm-hmm. So what leads me to the question is, who's catechizing these people? When I prepare for a confession, I use the Antiochian prayer book. Mm-hmm. And it talks about one of the ways to commit a sin is by endorsing it. So even if one is not participating in abortion themselves, to advocate for it, and to teach that it's morally right is sin in and of itself.
And that falls under, even voting for somebody who supports abortion. Now if you vote for somebody having no clue that he supports abortion and he came out that he did afterwards, okay, well, he didn't say, so how would you know? But if you knowingly and willingly support the character after he's come out, at abortion, that's like saying, what if it's like the classic tale in like a fantasy crime where you have the good character who becomes bad. You supported him at first, then he becomes bad, and you're like, well, I don't like you anymore. now we're in a situation where people actually are totally cool with, the evil side of this other person. And that's a really weird place to be in, especially as Orthodox Christians, because Orthodoxy is inherently a conservative ideology. Among all the ideologies out there, it is inherently conservative.
Yeah, and I find it so interesting that we've lost this idea of the value of life.
Mm-hmm.
Saint Ignatius writes in the Incarnation that the whole purpose, well, not the whole purpose, but one of the main purposes of Christ becoming flesh was to show us what it meant to be human.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes through each stage of life deifying it, and in suffering and doing all these other things to give us an idea of what it truly means to live a righteous and holy life. So it's obvious that going through all these stages, he's telling us that this is an important thing, that this has meaning to it. And so when we're doing this kind of stuff, when we're allowing infanticide, when we're participating in it,
really, that's what it is. It's infanticide. It's almost like a genocide, really.
Yeah, and we're not seeing the image of Christ in other people.
We're terminating it. We never even get to see the light of day. They never even get to see the light of day.
Yeah, we're degrading it. And we lose that value when within that we lose ourselves.
That's definitely the truth. I mean, we become a very post-Christian, atheistic, largely agnostic, ideology-ridden America. And, the whole idea of preserving life and Christ deifying every step of the way, that reminds me of the thousands of swine that were sent into the ocean. 2 demon-possessed men ran into Christ, and it looks like Christ ran into them, but actually they ran into him because they were the ones who acted surprised in that story. And they asked to be driven into the herd of swine. And Christ said, okay, because those 2 men were more important than any thousands of swine, which is a lot of money back then. Okay, it's still a lot of money today, allowing for inflation, but whatever. It's still a lot of money, food, animal life, because those 2 humans are so valuable. And now we've gone to the other side where apparently it's not valuable at all.
When I think about this, I think about what Lincoln argued about slavery, was that it wasn't only destroying the lives of the slaves, but the soul of the people who participated in it. And that's what we're doing. We're losing our humanity. It's harming us in so many ways. And the idea that Orthodox Christians would support this, and Christians in general, is abominable.
It's absurd. I mean, Orthodoxy has been always been pro-life. It's always been against it from the earliest fathers. As you just said. And I don't understand how you can really be Orthodox. Well, I don't understand how you can be Christian, much less an Orthodox Christian, and be pro-abortion at the same time. And there you get into the dichotomy of words. Pro-abortion versus pro-choice. Pro-choice means you support whatever choice the mother makes. By that logic, that means you support the life choices the mother makes, and you support the murder choice that the mother makes. So you're supporting murder and life at the same time, which I don't understand how that makes any sense. Once you actually sit down and think about it, and get into the etymology of the words, suddenly, you have to come to terms with whether you're Orthodox or whether you are going to go into a political ideology which devalues life, which, like you said, stops, divinity from manifesting itself.
And, I guess the thing is that I don't feel like this is a dispassionate stance. Because there's so many ways to handle this situation outside of abortion. Adoption is a more loving option in and of itself. I myself was adopted. My mother could have easily decided that, I don't give birth. It would have saved her a lot of issues, but then I would have never had a chance to find the church, to experience love in my life. And it's, again, there's so many different ways to handle it. And for people who want to cry for these people who want to have abortions because they're young and they've made a mistake, the simple solution is keep it in your pants.
Yeah, that's really the simple solution. It's now become an issue that people just can't keep their pants on. Love now is becoming synonymous with sexual satisfaction as being the only end-all, be-all. And, is actually interesting. So sometimes I like to waste time watching Jeremy Jahns. He's a great YouTube movie reviewer. He's very funny. And I watched his movie review of The Dark Knight. And in The Dark Knight, you get no indication at all that Rachel Dawes is sleeping with Harvey Dent, which is to say Two-Face. But they are a couple, though. They are romantically involved. They love each other. Okay. In Jeremy Jahns' review, he equated love with sex. He said that, yeah, she was sleeping with him. I'm sitting here, I'm going, I watched that movie. There was no hanky-panky happening at all. And so, now, and I know that is a very anecdotal piece of evidence, but then if you look at the character of Jeremy Jahns and compare it to all the other people you know, it's very similar. So, and then there's Crazy Stupid Love, that movie. And there's Sex in the City. It's incredibly rampant now. You have people who honestly believe... I remember I was in Subway one time. This was when I was in college. And I was in Subway. And I realized, poor choice of food, forgive me. But I heard a kid, he was still in his teenagers. I don't think he was even in college. He was telling his buddy about going on a date. And he goes... And the first thing the girl said to me was, so, do you want to have sex? First date, she asked him this question. I stopped listening after that. I mean, I didn't even mean to listen. It's just, I'm just sitting there. I don't have a book on me at the time, so I'm just like, whatever. So my ears just catch anything.
So I feel like all this is a greater symptom of the post-truth society that we live in. And at some point, someone has to stand up and say something. And this is the church's place to do so. We've, like Esau, we've traded our birthright for a pot of soup. Like we've given up truth for public applause. When our priests don't push this issue, when people are going through the catechism process and they're coming out having these radical views opposed to the church, what's going on? There's so many things that can prevent one from communing, and this obviously is one of them. But yet, people can play the role of an activist within the church, and nothing happened. Right?
Yeah. There is that the fact that there are people who believe that either they believed that when they came in, and either they never disclosed it, so they went in, and didn't really address that, or they pretended to understand. Or the catechism was really, really bad, and the priest did not, or a fellow parish member, if they have enough of them, did not come through and say, okay, look, so orthodoxy in modern times. Okay, modern is a really funny word because there's no such thing as a new evil. It's just evil that has carried over in with different... There's no such thing as a new evil. Evil is as old as the hills, Satan, okay? There are new methods, but the same evil still stands true. And so, before the more technical methods of abortion, such as suction aspiration, where you take a sharp-ended vacuum tube, shove it into the woman's body, rip the baby apart, and then vacuum it out at the same time. Okay, so we are now there. Before, it used to be a gaseous solution that was inserted into the mother, but that way it would essentially poison / asphyxiate the child. So, it's nobody came forward and said, look, I've had a chance to get to know you. I know you are very, very liberal. You are very cool with orthodoxy, or with abortion, and I know you like orthodoxy, but we have to talk about this very, very big issue where you have to preserve life.
Yeah. And the thing is that we don't fit our religion into our lives. We fit our lives into our religion. We strive to be like Christ. And like you said, the method changes, but the fathers, like I said, St. Basil was talking about the people who mix and make the poisons and the woman who takes them. Yet the method changes, but the result's the same. And the church has always been against it. Again, the Didache is one of the earliest Christian sources. And it specifically says, no abortion. It's the slaying of children. And at some point, our priests, our deacons, the people who are in the catechisms, and especially our patriarchs, need to say something. And the fact that someone like the Patriarch of Greece will speak on climate issues, but will not speak specifically about abortion, speaks volumes for where the church is today.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I think that's all we have to say for today. Thanks for joining us.
I could fix that in post.